Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Overtime Podcast, a Cold Front Report multicast. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Clayton Garrett. You can find me on Twitter at CFR Clayton, and joining me as always.
I'm Jeff Uvino. You can find me on Twitter at RealJUVEINO.
Well, I don't think it's any kind of secret what we're going to talk about here this Tuesday morning. So let's talk about the Bills coming off of a huge 48-19 dismantling of the Denver Broncos, the 2-seed Buffalo Bills, the AFC East champions. Jeff Uvino, your overall thoughts this Tuesday morning?
Yeah, the Broncos game was everything you could have hoped for and more if you're a Bills fan. I mean, just every aspect of the game, they completely dominated. There were a few moments in this game in the first half when it looked like Denver was going to stick around and maybe even come back in the game to make it interesting. But the Bills turned it on in the third quarter and really just put them away. And, I think that this being a potential trap game going in, people talking about that. We never thought that. We said that on the show last week. We didn't think this was anything remotely close to a trap game for the Bills. We expected them to win, but with the Bills going out there and showing everybody that, I mean, I think that we're almost getting to the point where I can ask you, do we expect the Bills to go out and win every single week? Are we at that point? Because we never have been before, and I'm cautious to do that. I'm cautious to think the Bills are going to go out and win every week because of the Bills fan in me that for the last 20 years, everything has happened. It's always been better than it seems to be. And this time of year is where everything usually starts to derail as a Bills fan in the 21st century. But is this team different? Is this a team that's going to go out and win every single week because we expect them to do and because they're better? I'm not sold on it.
Well, you said last week on the Overtime Podcast that when I asked you, is the matchup with the Denver Broncos in Denver a trap game for the Bills, who are, I believe, coming into that game, are winning 7 of the last 8, now winning 8 of the last 9. You said there's no such thing as a trap game with Sean McDermott as the Buffalo Bills head coach, and that I couldn't agree with you more on. That's what I said on the podcast. That sentiment still holds true this day. I don't think there is no such thing as a trap game with Sean McDermott as the Buffalo Bills head coach. And I understand that mentality because, that's why I enjoy having Jeff as a co-host on the podcast. That's why Jeff, probably enjoys me because we both have similar experiences watching the Buffalo Bills. The last 20 years has been the same last 20 years for everybody. The only difference for Jeff and I is it's been our entire lives. Not just we didn't get to enjoy the Super Bowl years. We didn't get to enjoy the last AFC East championship. So this is all new to us. This whole experience of euphoria of the Bills winning like this is different. So with that being said, I don't think it's appropriate for people to maintain the same kind of defeatist attitude with this Buffalo Bills team because go back to the overall point. There's no such thing as a trap game with Sean McDermott as your head coach. And, so many other things can coincide with that. This is not the Rex Ryan Buffalo Bills. This isn't the Chan Gailey Buffalo Bills, Doug Marrone Buffalo Bills, the Dick Duran Buffalo Bills. This isn't any of those washed up mediocre teams. It's not like that. And what sets this team apart is not just the expectation of going into a game and winning, but just Sean McDermott has always gotten the most out of this football team. You look at the team that he took over in 2017, that team had no business going 9-7 and backdooring its way to the playoffs. No business. And then you look at the team he had in 2018. If any other coach in the league has that team, they're probably winning 3 or 4 games that year. And you look at the team he had last year, it was a talented group, and he managed to get 10 wins out of that team. And now this year, you go into the year with one of the most difficult schedules and manage to have to raise the bar in terms of expectations. I think everybody needs to stop expecting to have that letdown because this isn't the typical Bills team everybody has grown so used to watching. This team is different. And I think everybody needs to stop holding their breath, stop clinching, and stop waiting for something to go wrong with this team. Because, I was just like you a couple of weeks ago. I was always telling people, oh, what do you think about the Bills? Oh, well, I'll tell you in 2 weeks. Well, that's no longer the case. This team has proven themselves. They are the hottest team in football. Forget the conferences, the hottest team in football. And they are riding a wave of momentum following that Hail Mary pass that they suffered at the hands of Kyler Murray against the Arizona Cardinals over a month ago. And that is really what has fueled this winning streak by the Buffalo Bills and almost this reign of dominance on both sides of the ball. And that is really what has started everything for this team going forward and what has given them as large of a wave of momentum heading into the playoffs as I've seen in recent past.
So we can expect them to go beat a team like the Broncos. We can expect them to beat the Patriots, knowing what the Patriots are this year. We can expect that. Maybe we can even expect them to beat the Dolphins at home week 17 and finish 13-3. But can we expect the Buffalo Bills to go beat a playoff team, win the first round of the playoffs, and a team that they're slightly better than? Can we expect that? Is it a given that the Bills are going to go out there on Wild Card Weekend and win? Or could it be a letdown? That is where my hesitation comes. You could play a team such as the Browns. You could play a team such as the Ravens. You could play a team such as the Colts. Now, I think that the Bills are objectively better than all three of those teams, but there's a lot of room for error for Buffalo. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and that letdown could be the culmination of what has been an otherwise successful and tremendous season. And that is where my apprehension comes in. I mean, we can say the Bills are going to go beat the Broncos, because I think that they showed that this week, is that this Bills team in its current form, how it's playing, is going to go beat below average teams handily, because they're at that level. That's never been the case before. So that's established. So now it's, can they go win that playoff game? Because they should. Because right now the Bills are the number 2 seed in the AFC. And like you said, they are the hottest team in football right now. Nobody wants to play the Buffalo Bills at all. And if they're that number 2 seed, even if they're the number 3 playing the 6 or 7, you're going to play a team that you're slightly better than. So are you going to go take care of business? Can we expect that from the Buffalo Bills, Clayton Garrett?
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's not far off of expectations to expect this team not just win a playoff game, but win 2 of them. You know, this team, they just advanced to the 2 seed last night after the Pittsburgh Steelers dropped a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Crazy. That was awesome. Thanks to the Cincinnati Bengals again for the second time in 3 years for helping us in the postseason in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's not far off expectations for fans to expect this team to go into the playoffs with the head of steam that they have, honestly. And you're not wrong to have the apprehension. I can see where it comes from. I can see where you're coming from, really, with it. And you're right. It's going to be curious. I'm curious to see if the playoffs is the culmination and what leads to a letdown for these fans. And that's what their letdown is the playoff loss. But if you look at the AFC playoffs today, I don't see a team that the Bills don't match up well with. The only team that really just makes me kind of nervous is Cleveland, knowing what they can do on the ground. But if the Bills can manage to get a 2-possession lead like they did against the Broncos, then you have to throw the ball with Baker. And I'll take that matchup against the Bills defense any day. So there really is a path to success for this team against, I think, everybody in their playoff bracket and their conference. And, you know, depending, they're only going to face one NFC team if they're going to have to play one for the rest of the year. So we'll see how that goes if they end up making it to the Super Bowl and who they match up with. But in regards to this Broncos contest, I thought Josh Allen was lights out again. And, you know, we're this podcast, we're going to talk about the overall meaning of this game and, you know, the outlying narratives and whatnot of what was impacted by the Bills winning this game, you know, becoming the AFC's champions. But I don't want to get too far off the path and not talk about the Broncos game at all. But Josh Allen, I thought Josh Allen played great in this game. You know, he looked like an MVP caliber quarterback. And he looked the way he should have looked against the team, the quality of the Denver Broncos. And it was almost beaten in everybody's heads last week that, oh, this is the number 1 red zone defense. This defense can make plays when they want to. And, you know, that all that was held true. But once Josh Allen got out on the field, it was game over. You know, they could have put up 60 on this Broncos team if they didn't have 3 or 4 touchdowns called back in one possession. It was crazy what this offense was able to do. And I'll talk about Brian Dable and his play calling in a minute. But Jeff, what were your overall thoughts about the Bills offense and their ability to perform against the Denver Broncos?
534 yards for the Bills, 8.2 yards per play. Everything was working. I mean, not only did Josh have 359 passing yards, they had 182 rushing yards as well. So this is really just everything was clicking for the Bills offense. And like I said, it was just their day. I mean, they were getting, you know, they were getting everything that they could have possibly gotten. I know that some penalties went against them, but you know, a play to Cole Beasley stands out in my mind. Beasley's running across the middle. The ball gets tipped by the defenders and lands right in Beasley's hands, and he continues to run for another 10 or 15 yards. You may know what I'm talking about. You may not. when that happened, I just said, it's the Bills' day. And it is. I mean, Jerry Hughes returning that for a touchdown, that was incredible to see. I mean, it was just the Bills' day. It really was. And they went out and showed how well they're playing right now. I mean, we saw them play against two, higher level opponents, in my opinion, than the Broncos in, San Francisco and Pittsburgh, at least two higher level defenses. And they really showed that they can beat down a poor team this week. And, I think the Bills are kind of notorious among their fans as not ever making it easy, not ever blowing teams out. It's always got to be interesting in the end, such as what we saw in the Chargers game. But that wasn't the case in this one. Buffalo really turned it on in the second half, which was even more impressive because Denver got some momentum back at the end of the first half. They scored that touchdown where Noah Fant beat Matt Milano in the end zone. And that kind of said, oh, okay, we got a lot of game left because Allen looked really good in the first half. For the way that he played, a lot of people were probably thinking this game's over. But that Denver touchdown at the end of the first half really kind of swayed the momentum and got them back into this one. But Buffalo came out and they outscored them 17-0 in the third quarter. And then the game's basically over. And the third quarter is something the whole first half of the season you and I talked about as being the Bills' weakness. That was a big question mark for them. We thought over the first month of the season that the Bills were getting outcoached in the third quarter. The game against the Rams comes to mind when Sean McVay came out in the second half and really had some nice things going for his team. And they came back from that 28-3 deficit and went ahead. Now, obviously, the Bills go on to win that game. But my point in case is that the third quarter had been an issue. I don't know the exact statistic off the top of my head, but the Bills have been really good in the third quarter recently. And this game was no exception, 17-0. They really put them away. And it's been a lot of Stephon Diggs as well. Coming out of the second half, they found ways Diggs to get the ball in the third quarter. And that has been huge for them. Clayton, your thoughts on this second half surge? Or all of a sudden, are the Bills a second half team all of a sudden?
Yeah. And see, we talk about this a lot. We've talked about how they don't want to be playing their best football in September and October, rather November, December, January, etc. And I think this plays a part in it. You can't say it doesn't. And 31 points in the last two games in the third quarter really kind of puts the third quarter bugaboo. Kind of puts it to bed. Can you really say that? Do I think it could possibly come back up in the playoffs when you're playing against quality opponents on a week-to-week basis? Yeah, potentially. I think it could be a problem come that time. But at this current moment in time, I'm not nearly worried about the third quarter as I was earlier this season. I mean, it got to the point where I had a meme that Mario Granata made and put on #sports Twitter, and I was retweeting it after every bad third quarter, and I feel like I've only retweeted it 2 or 3 times since he posted it. It was about 2 months ago. So the third quarter for the Buffalo Bills earlier in the season, that was really the biggest gripe that I've had, because that's where you saw teams like the Rams game where the Bills were up 21-7 at halftime, and the Rams managed to play themselves back into that game because the Bills were non-existent in the third quarter. And there were countless other outings like that where the Bills were just stagnant in the third quarter, and it hurt the team's overall momentum and their probability to win the game. Now you're seeing a team come out there in the third quarter with some sort of fire, with some sort of urgency, with a rhythm, with a plan set out, and you're seeing them move the ball. 500 yards of offense is not an easy thing to do. What the Bills did in the third quarter in this game, it was probably their best third quarter outing that we have seen since last week. And they've strung together 2 solid performances in the second half that has ultimately led to them winning football games. And that is what's important. You're no longer seeing the Buffalo Bills just play a half of football. And that was what my biggest gripe was, because you're not going to win a Super Bowl by playing a half of football. And the Bills they're playing complete performances, not just on offense, not just on defense, not just on special teams, but on all 3 phases in all 4 quarters. And that's what makes this team that's what makes them one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL at this current point in time.
The Bills offense can hurt you at any point in the game. You can shut them down for an entire half like the Steelers did. The Bills offense had nothing in the first half in that Steelers game, and they'll come out and beat you because they also have an opportunistic defense. I won't call this an elite defense, the Bills, because it's not. Let's be honest with ourselves. The Bills defense is not the elite unit that it was last year, but their defense is opportunistic. They force turnovers, And, they aren't easy. They aren't quick to give up the end zone. Additionally, this Bills offense can hurt you at any time. They can do it in the first half. They can do it in the second half. How many times has Josh Allen come out and been lights out on the first drive of a game? A lot. How many times has Josh Allen come out and been lights out in the third quarter or the fourth quarter? Fourth quarter Josh Allen, that's a thing. It's all the time. And you know who else does that? The Kansas City Chiefs. This is a Chiefs-like offense in that it can beat you at any time because it has the playmakers to do so. It has the play calling to do so. And it has the coaching staff to do so. And, comparing the Bills to the Chiefs is about as high of a compliment you can give a team in the NFL these days because the Chiefs are the standard. They're the defending champs. They're 13-1. They have the best player in the league, the highest paid player in the league. The Chiefs are the cream of the crop in the NFL, and if you're getting compared to them, that's a good thing. And I think that this Bills offense can be likened to the Chiefs because of how well they can play at any point in the game. They can hurt you at any point. The Chiefs are famous for those 21-point outbursts where all of a sudden maybe you're beating them 14-7, and then all of a sudden you're down 2 scores with a snap of the finger. And I think that's where the Bills offense is getting to as well, and that's really exciting, and it's really dangerous if you're a defense that's having to plan to face the Bills.
Let me ask you this. If the Bills played the Chiefs tomorrow in the AFC Championship in Arrowhead, because the Chiefs are the 1 seed, and that's where the game would be played, who are you picking?
Who am I picking?
Yeah, Bills Chiefs in Arrowhead for the AFC Championship.
I'm picking the Chiefs simply out of experience. I think that they have that experience and the Bills don't. But I think that it's very realistic for the Bills to get to the AFC Championship game. I think they can beat them. I think that the Bills can beat the Chiefs. I think if the Bills and the Chiefs were to play 10 times, the Bills would win 3 or 4. I don't think that's unfair to say. But right now at Kansas City, there's people in the building. The Chiefs are the more experienced team. I mean, that's a tough game to play if you're the Bills. Everything's really going to have to go right, and your defense is going to have to make some plays. But I think it would be a one-possession game either way, definitely. I don't think the Chiefs are going to blow out the Bills, especially how the Bills are playing right now. I mean, we saw what happened the first time these two teams played, but the Bills' rushing offense has gotten better since then. The Bills' offense in general has gotten better since that. What was that, the first week in October that the Bills played the Chiefs? That's an eternity ago. We know it's how you're playing in December and how you're playing in January that's most important in this league. And I would take the Chiefs right now. But I think it would be a very close game. Who do you have in that hypothetical matchup?
I don't want to sound.
You're going to pick the Bills.
I would take the Bills. I would take the Bills because the Bills right now, I think top to bottom are the most well-rounded team in the NFL. They are. They're a better roster than the Kansas City Chiefs. They have a better defense. The Kansas City Chiefs. Go watch the Kansas City's last 5 games. They have won more games by 6 points or less than any team in NFL history. They're not playing good football right now. And that Kansas City team that, struggled to put up 22, they put up 22 points beating the Broncos a couple weeks ago. They struggled to put the ball in the end zone against their divisional opponent, the Denver Broncos. And the Bills just walked into Mile High and hung up 48 like it was nothing. They were ready to hang up 60 on this team. They didn't score twice in the red zone. They could have easily put up 64 points in this game. That's the point I'm trying to make, is this team, when they're firing on all cylinders, they're better than any team in the league. That defense is better than Kansas City's, in my opinion. Their special teams unit is better than Kansas City's, in my opinion. You saw Andre Roberts muff a punt this week and then take a kick return off in the second half for 51 yards and ultimately give this offense a spark like he's done all season. People keep forgetting about Andre Roberts and his ability with the football in his hands. I understand that one muff punt, it kind of swung momentum. I believe Denver ended up scoring a touchdown off of it with such a short field. They took the ball around the Bills' 20-yard line. So, the point is that this Bills team, when they're firing on all cylinders, they are the most well-rounded team in the NFL. They are. From back to front on the defensive side of the ball and from front to boundary with your offense. This offensive line is better than the Chiefs. These receivers, I don't know. You can't say the Bills skill players can't really hang with the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, because, there's only like 15 of them that could start on any roster in the NFL now. But other than that, I think the Bills, they obviously don't have a better quarterback. He's not Patrick Mahomes right now, but I think the Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship. And if they do play, It's going to be an interesting matchup. And just like Wesley, oh, man, I'm so sorry, Wesley. I'm not going to say your last name just to not be insulting on the Facebook comments. This has been going on without John Brown too. Wait until he's back at 100%. Exactly. This offense has been humming on all cylinders, and the losing John Brown has appeared to not really phase this offense. Whereas earlier in the season, when you didn't have John Brown against the Chiefs, against the Titans, it was a huge miss for the Bills. There was a dynamic of the Bills offense that was certainly missing. And to me, that was kind of scary. Like you're missing your number 2 wide receiver, and this is how bad how much it impacts your overall offense. Because the Bills' offense was night and day with and without John Brown on the football field. And now these last 4 games where he's been inactivated, he was on injured reserve, activated off injured reserve, but not activated for the game last Saturday. So you've seen this offense be able to put up yards, put up points, look as good as this looked all season, all without their number 2 wide receiver, who is, by many people in that locker room considered to be the best wide receiver in the National Football League. So, yeah, I'm taking the Buffalo Bills. I think this offense, I don't think they've even hit their peak yet. We talk about them beating up a Broncos team. You can say what you will about the quality of this Broncos team, but this is a Broncos team that the Kansas City Chiefs struggled to defeat. The Kansas City Chiefs have been struggling to defeat teams for the last month and a half, and I think they're going to continue that streak going into the postseason. And that's they're finding ways to win games. That's held to be that can be said. Yeah. But and are they a good football team? I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not. They're an incredible football team, as are the Buffalo Bills. Do I think the Bills match up to them as well as any team in the NFL? And if there's any team in the NFL that's going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, would I bet it be the Bills? Yeah, I would, just like I would have back in week 6. But, that was a different time. Like you said, Jeff, this team is playing different football right now. And, yeah, I have all the confidence in the world in the Buffalo Bills matching up with the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship.
So from a roster perspective, I think these two teams are very close. Like you said, the Bills defense is playing a little better right now. You had the Mahomes factor, obviously, so much, and they have different weapons. They both have a great wide receiver. The Chiefs obviously have the weapon at tight end, Travis Kelce. The Bills don't have anything like that, but the Bills receiving core might be deeper. But the two things that I wouldn't discredit when we're looking at that matchup is, number one, coaching. It's not a shot at Sean McDermott. It's that Andy Reid's one of the best coaches in NFL history, especially one of the best offensive minds in NFL history. And you give him all of those playmakers, and then you throw Andy Reid calling them plays. There's a reason why they're the best team in the NFL. They have everything, and you need everything. And I think the Bills have everything too, but the Chiefs really have everything. And the second thing I wouldn't discredit is experience. The Chiefs just won the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of members from that team back, and they've been there. The Bills playing in the Super Bowl would be, just imagine that. I know that we're imagining it now, but before this season, that's just such a foreign concept to so many Bills fans who maybe weren't around for the Super Bowl runs, or maybe the Super Bowl runs were so long ago that they've forgotten what that feeling is like, what this area, what this town is like when the Bills are in the Super Bowl. And how would that feel for the players? Whereas the Chiefs have been there before. I understand not everybody on this Chiefs team was on the Super Bowl team last year, but a lot of them were. Their nucleus was. And I think that the experience and the coaching staff has been there before as well. I think that would be the deciding factor in this game, because the rosters are pretty hard to separate, especially how well the Bills are playing right now. But I think that it's going to come down to who's playing better football in a month. Maybe it really could. If we get to that point, 4 or 5, 6 weeks from now, and it's the Bills versus the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, it could be who's playing better ball right now. Chris Fowler said in the comments, I just hope we don't go past our peak. Yeah, me too. Because, everything points to this being Buffalo's peak. I hope that they can keep the peak out through the rest of the year, because maybe they've just gotten to that point as a football team. But if they regress, if they start playing a little more poorly than they are now, then they're going to have trouble beating teams like the Chiefs or like the Titans. So we'll see who's playing better football in another month.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe the Chiefs haven't been playing their top ball right now just because of that factor, because they don't want to bottom out too soon. maybe that's exactly what I'm not kind of factoring in here with the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe they're letting off the pedal a little right now because I feel like their floor is higher than most teams in the NFL. When they're at their worst, they are better than just about everybody. That's how I feel about the Kansas City Chiefs.
For sure.
And maybe they're laying off the gas this last long stretch before the playoffs so that they can get their bye, refresh, go into the playoffs with a head of steam. Maybe that's their thought process in this, but I don't know. We'll see. The whole playoff conversation is intriguing as it is. That 7th seed is going to be held by either Miami or Baltimore. And one of those teams missing the playoffs, I think you and I both know which team is more deserving of missing the playoffs, but I'll dodge a matchup with the Baltimore Ravens any day. Like overplaying the Tua Tagovailoa-led Miami Dolphins. Oh yeah, I'll dodge Lamar Jackson and that Ravens team any day to match up with Tua and that lightning in a bottle team that they've got going on right there with Tua and that offense moving. They are coming off the heels of beating the Patriots, who are the Bills' opponent this week. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but. No, overall, this Broncos performance, we talked about the defense. We talked about this offense. Jeff, who are your studs? Who are your duds? Do you even have any duds?
No, I mean, it's hard. It would be hard to have a dud in this game. I don't have one. My stud is going to be, it's really tough in this game because it's everybody played so well, but my stud is going to be Jordan Poyer. That's kind of might be a random one. But him and Tremaine Edmonds each had 8 tackles to lead the game. Poyer, a lot of people know the NFL Pro Bowl teams were announced yesterday. Jordan Poyer was left off that list. He's never been a Pro Bowler. A lot of people arguing that he should have been a Pro Bowler, but I've got him just to give him some recognition because him and Micah Hyde really just tie up this defense so well. And I really believe that, as central to this defense as the linebackers are, it's Hyde and Poyer calling it out from the back that is really the heart and soul of this defense. And I don't think a lot of defenses can say that with your 2 safeties running the show. These are 2 experienced players who know what they're doing back there, and they lead by example every day. And so Poyer's my stud. Give him some recognition. And, there's so many guys on the offensive side of the ball that could have deserved this, but I'll go defense this week. Change it up a bit.
I was going to say Poyer just out of the fact that he got up in that Pro Bowl team. No, it's perfectly fine. He got stuff from that Pro Bowl team. That's malarkey. I don't get it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of you see that on Twitter last night on whatever social media that Poyer should have been snubbed, and you say, all right, you're defending your hometown guys. Then you look at the box score, and he led the team in tackles on Saturday in the team's previous game. He's doing things right on the football field. And how many times does Jordan Poyer's name come up as doing something poorly? Not very often. And the same can be said with Micah Hyde. I mean, that's really the mark of a good defensive back. They'll get their interceptions. They'll get their passes defended. But when you're not really ever talking about them doing something wrong, blowing coverages, that's how you got a damn good defensive back.
So Rob Roberson says in the comments, so should I hop off the fire Dable train, Clayton? And I'm not saying fire Brian Dable. I've never said that. But what I will say is Brian Dable is the stud this week, and here's why. And I was going to pick Poyer initially because, the Pro Bowl snub, but I had to think on the fly here. And it's because this weekend I had to have a big old plate of crow because I'm going to admit that I'm wrong about Brian Dable. I never said Brian Dable won't be a good offensive coordinator. He's simply doing the things that, I wanted to see him do. And now it is coming to fruition. Now you are seeing a 3-dimensional offense. And I won't forget this, that Mario Granata told me one time. I don't even think we were on air. I think we were just talking behind the scenes. Shout out to Mario Granata and Paul Wineski of #Sports, the YouTube channel. Please go subscribe to them. #Sports. Follow them on Twitter. #Sports, I believe it is on Twitter. Apologies if I'm mistaken. But he said their Hart-Perkins system, which is what Brian Dable runs, it's predicated on passing to score and running to win. And that is something that you saw this team do this week. You saw them pass to score. They got up on this team, and they ran the ball to win this game. And you saw some tough running from Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. That cannot be lost in this game. I understand 51 of Singletary, 68 yards came on one carry. But Zach Moss having the workload that he did, his 13 carries for 81 yards, averaging 6.2 yards per carry. That's awesome. That is awesome. That is the kind of rushing performance that we need from these two young running backs. So I think that Zach Moss and Devin Singletary could be workload running backs if they needed to be. Yeah, I do. Do I think Zach Moss and Devin Singletary could be worked like David Montgomery was worked this past week in Chicago? Absolutely. Is it necessitated? No, it's not, because the Bills have one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So it is not necessitated that the Bills need to run the ball like crazy. But the point is when they needed to run the ball in this game, they ran the ball and they closed out the game. Go back and look at the Steelers game. 7-11 on the clock. The Bills get the ball back around midfield. It's game over. The Bills ran the clock out. They were handing it off to their 2 young running backs. They were doing some powerful running and running through the hole hard. And they ultimately sealed this game with a solid attack between the tackles. And I think that's the biggest thing people need to worry about with the Buffalo Bills going into the playoffs, because you saw it this past week with the Kansas City Chiefs. You saw them start establishing their run, I really felt like I haven't watched every Kansas City Chiefs game this year. Kansas City Chiefs game this year. Don't get me wrong. But it felt like really the first time they were really working Le'Veon Bell and Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a pairing and really trying to make them the focal point of the offensive approach. And that's not necessarily what I'm saying about the Bills' approach with Zach Moss by any means. If anything, it's the inverse. They were handing the ball off a majority of the time on their last possession. So Lone Wolf says, Dable probably gone next year. Who would you want as the Bills' new offensive coordinator? Lone, I think it's pretty obvious who the answer is. I don't think you're going to have to look very far. I think it's almost seamless that they're going to put Ken Dorsey in as their offensive coordinator. I feel like they've wanted Ken Dorsey as their offensive coordinator for a long time. And, they had the backup plan for Brian Dable leaving because, and this is a narrative that I want to bite in the butt right now. Jeff, do you think that, and with the half hour left in the podcast, don't worry, we'll talk about the Patriots. We'll get to the Patriots. I have plenty of things I have to say about the basement dwellers now. But do you think, are you kind of afraid of Josh Allen's play from 2020 tapering off next year with the potential of having a new offensive coordinator in place for the first time in his career that isn't Brian Dable?
So I think that if you hire within, so if you're appointing somebody instead of bringing somebody in from outside of the organization, no, I wouldn't be as worried as if you were. So if you appoint Ken Dorsey and he's already coming up from in the organization, he's just moving up to an extended role, then no, because he's been around Allen. Allen already has a relationship with him. If you're bringing in somebody from outside of the staff you've already accumulated, then I would be more worried. But I don't think they're going to do that because it's not logical, because of the progression that Allen has enjoyed under Dable. Now, here's the thing. Dable leaving is obviously not good because you're taking away that relationship that they've built the last 3 years. However, Dable has been an instrumental part of building up Allen to what he is now. And a lot of people have had hands in doing that. But Dable's gotten to Allen where he is now. And so now if Dable hands off Allen to a new offensive coordinator, I think he can still do it. The progress that Dable has made isn't going to retract because he leaves. I think that Dable can get a lot of credit for figuring out what works with Josh. And, Ken Dorsey will have that information as well. If he or whoever is appointed as new offensive coordinator, they're going to know what worked with Josh because Brian Dable figured that out. And maybe it took him a while. Maybe it took a while for Josh to get the system down, to get Dable's system down. Maybe it took a while for Dable to find what type of offense works best with Josh. Maybe it just took getting all of the correct pieces in place, such as the acquisition of Diggs, signing Beasley, John Brown last year, guys like that. Maybe that's what it took. But the progression that Allen has showed, I don't think is going to go away because his offensive coordinator is going away. And so that's what would be what my stance is. Now, maybe it'll take the two of them a bit to find out their chemistry, but the Bills organization knows what has worked from them in the past. And now that they've showed that on the field, they can continue to go with that. They can continue to do what they're doing now that works.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I heard it. I'm not going to say from who. I'm not going to say on what show, but it was national media. and they said, oh, it's going to be real interesting to see how that Allen kid holds up when Brian Dable. No, stop it. I don't even want to hear that narrative start. It's not you're already starting the stuff I expect to hear by next July. Oh, Brian Dable left Josh Allen. Stop it. Josh Allen is the best thing that has happened to Brian Dable in his offensive coordinating career ever. He's going to get a head coaching job because Josh Allen was his quarterback, and that kid oozes potential. I said it on the live show in the post game this past week on the Cold Front Report. If anybody deserves credit for Josh Allen turning into what he has turned into, it's Josh Allen. At the end of the day, I don't care. You can find somebody who is successful that might have had all the ducks in a row to be successful. Maybe they grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth, whatever. Maybe you find somebody that dug themselves out of a rut and they're just as successful. You know who deserves the credit? Both of the individuals. Everybody deserves their own credit for their own work. At the end of the day, you're accountable and you're responsible for the things that you either succeeded or failed at. And at the end of the day, Josh Allen is the reason that this offense it looks the way it is. It does. I'm not going to sit here and say that Brian Dable leaving isn't going to impact Josh Allen. But I will sit here and say that Brian Dable leaving is going to impact Brian Dable way more than it will ever impact Josh Allen, especially if you just plug and play Ken Dorsey in as your offensive coordinator. Do I think it's going to be as seamless as a transition? Do I think it's much easier said than done? Yeah, absolutely. It's much easier said than done that you go into a season with a new offensive coordinator, regardless if it's in-house, out-of-house, or what have you. But Brian Dable leaving, if Josh Allen were to fail, it is not going to be because Brian Dable left to go coach whatever sorry-ass team he chooses to go coach. But speaking of a team that I think he's going to go coach, I'll say this. It's between two teams, in my opinion. I think it's either going to be the Chargers or it's going to be the New York Jets. I have my reservations of Brian Dable as a head coach. I think if he goes to the Chargers, he's going to be successful. If he goes to the Jets, I guess we'll wait and see. You know, Joe Douglas, a lot of people have a lot of good things to say about him, the Jets general manager, that is. So maybe all they need is the right mind in there. Maybe Brian Dable could be that. Let's not take anything away from Brian Dable, though. I think he has improved. He has evolved as an offensive coordinator. He has this offense rolling on all cylinders. It's multidimensional. But the fact still remains, Josh Allen is an MVP caliber quarterback with or without Brian Dable. This isn't some Kyle Shanahan, Matt Ryan, lightning in a bottle type stuff that you saw a couple years ago, in my opinion. Not by any means. You saw Josh Allen evolve from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. Is it theoretically impossible to not give Brian Dable credit for that evolution? Yeah, it's impossible. But I don't see Brian Dable as a quarterback whisperer, a quarterback builder. All these national media people that try and act like they know. That was almost a bad one. To try and act like they know anything about the Buffalo Bills. I don't know. I've grown tone deaf to it. I really have. If Brian Dable leaves, if Brian Dable leaves, he's going to do the same stuff with a new offensive coordinator next year. Book it. I'll put money on it. I will put money on it that he does the same stuff with a new offensive coordinator next year, assuming that his dudes stay healthy, that being Diggs, Brown, and Beasley. But we'll see. It'll be interesting, and time will tell. But the Bills did win their first AFC championship in a long time this year, 25 years. The first one that Jeff, and I have gotten to experience in our lives, really. Jeff, what are you, 20, 21, 22?
21, yeah.
21. So, yeah, I'm 20. First time. It's been a long time, but the Bills have to play the team that reigned over this division for 11 consecutive seasons. And I believe every season since 2000, aside from 2008, when the Dolphins won at 11-5 with Brady tore his ACL, the New England Patriots. And this is a team that's coming off the heels of a loss to said Miami Dolphins. And they did not look good. They haven't looked good, quite frankly, in a long time. So before we get into a comprehensive preview of the New England Patriots, Jeff, what are your overall thoughts of this team going into the Bills' second meeting with them this season?
Well, these teams are in a lot different place than they were week 8. I mean, going into that previous game, the Patriots were 2-5, I think, and they really needed a win. The Bills were 6-2 at that time, or 5-2 at that time. And, the teams have just spiraled in completely different directions since then. I think that back in the first time the Bills played the Patriots, Buffalo was still kind of looking for its identity. Are the Bills for real as far as, convincing across the National Football League and across the United States that the Bills were for real. That was where they were last game, and that Patriots game was a big stepping stone into that, because it's okay, they finally beat the Patriots. And since that win, it's been all uphill for Buffalo, and it's been all downhill for the Patriots. I mean, that Bills win was in the midst of this last, 8 of 9 wins, with the one loss coming on the Hail Mary. This Patriots game was 2 weeks removed from that ugly loss to the Chiefs, 3 weeks removed from getting blown out at the Titans. Now, these two teams are at different places than they were then. Cam Newton has become, I dare say, a laughing stock. He can't throw the ball down the field. He just isn't performing. He hasn't performed all season, and he just can't do it anymore. And they don't have anybody around him to help him out. It's not all his fault. That offense is really struggling right now. They're not good. They're not good. And they have defensive playmakers, especially in the secondary. But, us going into this Patriots game, we're at a lot different place than we were week 8 going into the first one. And that might be a little dangerous to if you're just overlooking the Patriots, which I'm not saying the Bills are going to do that. They won't. But we're at a different place because the Patriots have just kind of gone down while the Bills have kind of gone up since then. The Patriots are out of it. They're eliminated from the playoffs. They don't have much to play for other than to spoil the Bills draft pick and for draft positioning. Other than that, I guess, did I say the Bills draft pick? Spoil the Bills postseason seeding. So they don't have a lot to play for other than that. But so coming into this game, it's kind of a weird feeling. Games in Foxborough, the last 20 years, Bills games in Foxborough haven't really mattered. It's because the Bills have been out of it. Now, it's because the Patriots are out of it. Oh, isn't that funny?
Oh, that was music to my ears. It's because the Patriots are out of it. And you want to know why? Because they suck. The Patriots are a bad football team. I hate being candid like that. Sometimes there's times where I should be a little more articulate than I am, and I'm sorry to the listeners. But look at this Patriots team. What do they have that scares you right now? Who scares you on either side of the ball? Who? Name somebody. They don't have Gilmore. Gilmore's out. Gilmore has a partially torn quad. I wish him a healthy and speedy recovery. He's one of the best reigning defensive player of the year, but he's out for this game. He's not suiting up for the Patriots. That's that was their best player going to this game. So who on this roster really scares you? Because it's not Harry. It's not Jacoby Myers. It's not Damiere Byrd. It's nobody. Damian Harris doesn't scare me. Does Sony Michel on half a knee scare? No. Stop it. Stop. I think this game might be competitive just solely out of the fact that it is a divisional matchup. And if it's anybody in the NFL that knows how to get Josh Allen off his mark, it's Bill Belichick. But Josh Allen's shown in the past that he's not afraid to fight right back into that Bill Belichick fire. Now, something that I don't think people are going to anticipate this week that I think you should. I think John Brown's going to be activated for the first time in over a month this week. And the reason being is you look at last week when he was activated. Okay, they got him back to practice last week off of the injured reserve list. And now that was in a short week. They were playing on Saturday. Now they have a longer week because they're playing on Monday. So they have 8 days of preparation, kind of. So I think there's more wiggle room to put John Brown back in this game, and that is something that I think fans should have in mind. I want to see John Brown play before the playoffs. I want to see him, because it's difficult to just go back out there and be expected to play at a high level. And when you're in the playoffs, that's what you need to be able to do, is you need to be able to play at a high level on a play-to-play basis, and that's how you win football games in December and January. And if John Brown comes out there with a lick of rust, I'm not saying he's going to be useless. I'm not saying the Bills' offense is going to be inept if John Brown's out there with some sort of rust coming off of this ankle injury. But I will say I'd much rather see him bang off that rust against the New England Patriots in a game that I'm not going to say the Bills have nothing to play for. They have the number 2 seed to play for. I saw somewhere in the comments that if the Bills have another win, they'll be I don't know if they'll clinch the number 2 seed, but I guess we'll see. I know they'll definitively have sole possession of the 2nd seed. But No, I want to see John Brown back in this football game. I want to see him get the rust off. Do I have much to say in terms of his usage? I don't know how much they'll use him because personally, I feel like the same approach they took against the Patriots last time could potentially work this time. A game in which one of the only 2 games this season that you saw both of these running backs, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, go over 80 yards in a game. Do I think that this could be a run-heavy game plan? I absolutely do. It worked for the Bills the last time these 2 teams matched up. So maybe they could yin to the yang of what worked in their prior matchup because the Patriots could be expecting that. But time will tell. We'll see. Do I think it's a given that Stephon Diggs is going to go off in this game without Stephon Gilmore in there and just J.C. Jackson covering him? Yeah. I think this is a big game for the Bills running backs and Stephon Diggs. And potentially even Cole Beasley as well. I think this offense, this defense doesn't scare me. I don't care if it's the Patriots. I don't care if it's Bill Belichick. This ain't it. These dudes aren't the dudes. Do I love Kyle Duggar? I love Kyle Duggar. But do I think this defensive unit is capable of stopping the Buffalo Bills right now? No, I can't tell you that. I would not be able to tell you that with a level-headed mind. This Patriots team cannot stop the Bills offense, and I don't anticipate that they will at all.
No, and on the other side of the ball, I mean, we know what the Patriots offense is as well. You need to slow down their rushing attack, and then you're going to win. And this is a good opportunity for the Bills defense to stay hot and show that it can slow down a rush-first offense, because that's a big question mark going into the playoffs. If you're going to have to play Cleveland, if you're eventually going to have to play Kansas City, you're going to have to slow down a rushing attack. And that's a big chance this week for the Bills defense to be able to do that, because if you stop this Patriots rushing offense, you win the game. Cam Newton isn't going to beat you. He's not going to. I would bet the under of him throwing 200 yards in a game. That's how poorly they've been. They've played. That's how poorly they've played this whole offense. And so I think this is a great opportunity for the Bills defense to, stay hot and slow down this rushing attack and just kind of, show the world that you can do this week in and week out. And for the Bills offense, they just have too many weapons for the Patriots defense to beat them, especially with the Patriots' best defensive player in Stephon Gilmore out. And, the couple other guys who are out for them, a few other guys who are out for them because of they have been out the whole season because of COVID. Great opportunity for the Bills offense. And I don't see this Patriots defense slowing them down. The Bills have too many weapons. I mean, they really do. And I think this is just a great opportunity for the Bills to stay hot. It's tough to play in Foxborough no matter when, no matter what year. Even if there are no fans in the stadium, it's tough to play up there. But I think that the Bills can kind of make a statement here. And one thing I wanted to say about this game, on Monday Night Football again, I mean, maybe I'm just talking like a spoiled fan, but I'm sick of these primetime games, man. I want the Bills to play at 1 p.m. on Sunday. And, I know that's been the case for so long, but man, I'm ready for it to be a 1 o'clock game, and then the rest of the games can be other good teams for me to watch.
You gotta work the night shift, Jeff.
It's true.
You gotta work the night shift. It changes once you go to the night shift. You live like Batman, and you're not afraid of the night anymore. It's great. It's great.
Well, I don't know, man. I miss the 1 p.m. start times. Maybe that's just like a spoiled thing for me to say. But
I think that's going to be a weeks 1 through 8 thing for the Bills going forward, but maybe even not. I don't know. I think until the Bills get a new stadium, you're not really going to see them get a platform on national television for a sustained long time. Do I think they will next year? Well, if they win the Super Bowl, it's obvious they're going to be on national stages a lot. So do I think you should get used to it? Yeah, I do. I kind of do, but I don't know. I like these Monday night games. I'm excited for this because it's on prime time. It's in Foxborough. It's in the city that Bills fans were so savage. They won a fan contest, and then they put the sign in Foxborough like 20 minutes away from the stadium. That's awesome. And it's getting put there the week leading up to the matchup of the game. That's awesome. That is so savage right now. I think people aren't credited Bills Mafia enough. They're the nicest people. They'll donate to whatever charity that you try and help out, that you started or you fund. They'll help you out. But guess what? They're not pulling any punches towards the Patriots. They're not pulling any punches towards Foxborough and putting that. I guarantee you, there's players that have to pass that side out of their way to work every day, and that's awesome. And you look at this Patriots team. And do I think we're going to have a lot different conversations next year when they have like 8 opt-outs coming back and they have a draft class and whatever happens in the offseason happens? Yeah, I do think we're going to have a much different conversation. Do I think the biggest factor for that football team and succeeding going forward will ultimately be their quarterback, just because it is for every other team in the NFL? Do I think they're going to land in quarterback purgatory? Potentially. Am I going to be upset? No, I'm not. But we will see what happens to the Patriots going forward. But this year, week 16 of the NFL on Monday Night Football, no, I don't anticipate this game to be close. I don't anticipate the Patriots to put up a fight. You look overall up and down this team and how they match up with the Buffalo Bills. On the defensive side of the ball, who's covering Stephon Diggs? Because it's not Jonathan Jones and it's not J.C. Jackson. I don't see anybody on that defense who's going to cover Stephon Diggs. Do I think they could provide potentially a difficult matchup in the slot or with the Bills tight end Dawson Knox? Potentially. But if John Brown is back in this game, that to me is the X factor for the Bills offense. That to me is what will be the determining factor as to whether or not you're going to see a pass-heavy approach or a run-heavy approach. And I think the Bills will be successful no matter what they determine that they want to do. I think they could have a multidimensional approach like they have the last couple of weeks. And by multidimensional, I don't mean necessarily like a 50-50, a 55-45, or even a 60-40. Multidimensional, the Bills have been running a 65-35 approach run past the run, and it works. That's why it's so good, because it works. And the Bills are doing, Brian Dable, he's in a groove play calling, and that it can't be denied. You look at how this offense is humming up and down the field, it's pretty obvious that this is a confident play caller. This is a confident quarterback. And when you get into a groove like that, it's difficult. It's difficult to stop. It's difficult to kind of, break tendencies against them, because watch the tape. Josh Allen's dicing up no matter what coverage they throw, no matter what coverage the team throws at him, he is dicing up that coverage. And do I think that the Bills are going to beat the New England Patriots? I absolutely do. And with that, Jeff, let's get into our picks. Bills visiting the Patriots, Monday Night Football. Who you got?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're picking the Bills consistently over 30 points, and I think that shows us and everybody where this Bills offense is at. I'm going to say they're going to do it again. I've got the Bills 31-15. I think that, this isn't an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. It could come down to the fourth quarter, the second half of the fourth quarter, but the Bills will take care of business. I think this offense is going to get its points. I'm picking the Bills to score 30 points no matter who they're playing at this point, because that's how well this offense has been over the last really 2 months. I mean, I think that the Seattle game was kind of the breakout game for the Bills offense, maybe. And I hadn't even been going back that far recently because, I thought that the Niners game was a great, exemplary performance by the Bills offense. But now going back all the way back to when they played Seattle, even when they played Arizona and they lost that game, these were really, this offense has been really good since then. And so I don't think that this Patriots defense is the one to slow them down. The Bills will get their points 31-15 and 12-3 going into week 17. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, whoa. I was muted there for a whole.
Mm-hmm.
That's embarrassing. I'm so sorry to those that are watching live. It would be something else. And I'm excited to see this game. I don't think the Bills are going to lose. In fact, this is really it. This is really it, I think, for the Patriots dynasty. Week 16, the Bills are 11-3, winning 8 of their last 9, and the one loss coming on the last snap of the game. Wow. This has really been, I feel like this is the culmination. I wouldn't say the culmination of 20 years. That's a little dramatic, isn't it? That's a little dramatic. I'm tired of chasing the ghosts of Tom Brady. That's not a thing for me. But get your shovels ready, Bills Mafia. Get your shovels ready. And I don't mean for the snow. I don't mean for your car. I don't mean to get your wife's key out of the driveway. I mean get your old-fashioned wooden handles, metal piked shovels ready to bury the New England Patriots dynasty. Rest in peace, 2020. That's what it is. That's what this Monday night game is. And the Bills they put him on national television, for Christ's sakes. You can't tell me going into a year where beforehand it was your best options are Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer, and then it's Cam Newton. Oh, this is a great Monday night game. It's not. This is not a great Monday night game. It's not a great matchup. If this game's close, it's because it's a divisional matchup. That is a fact. That is the only way this game stays close, is by the familiarity that these teams have with one another. By any other means, the Bills match up incredibly well with this team. They just do in all phases, whether they want to pass the ball, run the ball. They're going to stop. I think they're going to stop the rushing attack. And Cam Newton throwing the ball this year is just flat out useless with those targets that he's throwing to. Those receivers that he has, they're probably 31st in the league to the and just behind the New York Jets, excuse me. But get your shovels ready. This is where the Bills bury the Patriots dynasty. And I think that that's how everybody's going to feel after this game. The Bills just won their first AFC East championship in 25 years. And I think they're going to sweep the New England Patriots. Wow. That'd be the first time they swept the Patriots. I think it'd be 03. I think it'd be 03, the first time they swept the Patriots. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that. But it's been a long time since the Bills have swept the Patriots and won the division. I'm taking the Bills to win this game handedly. 34-13. It's not going to be close. Cam Newton, he's gonna put the final nail in his coffin in his New England Patriots career. I think he's going to turn the ball over 3 or 4 times. It doesn't matter where this game's being played. This Bills team is playing better than anybody. Forget the conference. They're playing better than anybody in football right now. And I don't think that comes to a screeching halt in Foxborough with John Brown potentially returning and playing a team that, just think about it. If you're in that locker room, how motivated are you? Because you're about to finish up this season and go into the playoffs, and you're beating a team that, this team has been chasing for the last 3 or 4 years. That's really what it is. And I'm excited to see how the Bills rise to the occasion this weekend.
I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's an interesting situation to be in for Bills fans as you're going into this game with it not mattering for one of the teams because they're eliminated, and that team isn't you. That team's the Patriots. And that's really, really an interesting thing, an interesting concept. And, it's almost like a celebration of this season. Obviously you have to win the game, but going into Foxborough, knowing that they're eliminated from the playoffs and the Bills are the AFC East champions, it kind of shows the changing of the guard that we've seen this year. And, only time will tell if that will continue. But as of now, I mean, wow, what a place to be in.
Where'd you rather be than right here, right now? I hate being cliche, but it is what it is. All right. Once we start pulling out cliche lines and dad jokes, I haven't pulled out a dad joke yet, so let's get out of here before we do. Jeff, please tell the people where they can find you, what they have to look forward to when they do. Bonnie's basketball is heating up. What do you got?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at RealJUvino, like it says below my name down there. We got Bonnie's basketball. They're supposed to play today. That game got canceled yesterday because of their opponent had a positive COVID test. However, Atlantic 10 basketball starting up next week. That's going to be fun, and it will coincide with the Buffalo Bills playoff run. The NFL last 2 weeks, kind of what we're going to be doing a lot of scoreboard watching. Clayton and I will be, to see where the Bills are finally going to land. So it's going to be an exciting time, and the NBA starts today. I'm not really a big NBA fan, but it starts today. It'll be interesting. Hockey coming up in 4 weeks. So, hey, we're going to have sports fans are going to have a lot on their plate, aren't they, Clayton?
Oh, yeah. I feel like they just got done with the hockey and basketball season for some reason.
Yeah, that's because they did. They're started up again quickly.
Quick turnaround. I really hope those players, I really hope they manage themselves well. I think you're going to start seeing some very innovative things from different teams throughout both of those leagues, because it takes a lot to manage your bodies for that long of a season. 82 games in both those leagues, unless I'm mistaken. And coming off a quick turnaround like that with their COVID season, I understand it was a shortened season. You were in a bubble, but best wishes to all those players and their families, because that's going to be difficult again. If they're going to stick those guys in a bubble, and that's always unfortunate. But with that, be sure to follow the Cold Front Report on Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. That's at Cold Front Report on Twitter, at Cold Front Report _Bills News on Instagram. Cold Front and Buffalo Bills Cold Front Report on Facebook, and then it's just Cold Front Report on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and like if you're watching on there. If you'd like to find me on Twitter, it's at CFR Clayton, and on Instagram, it's the same exact handle, at CFR CLAYTON. And thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. And this has been the Overtime Podcast presented by the Cold Front Report.